Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 29th episode of Season 1 of the Shiv Nadar Foundation Conversations. I am your host for today, Raspreet Sidhu. I head sports for Shiv Nadar Schools, and I also lead the Indian National Women's Basketball team. Shiv Nadar Foundation Conversations is an initiative to inject much needed positivity into our lives and to create ripples of inspiration in these difficult times. In this series, we have hosted leaders from diverse fields who have shared their life lessons with us. These guests include Nobel Prize winner Kailash Satyarthi, badminton champion PV Sindhu, founder and CEO of Zomato Dipinder Goyal, India's leading fashion entrepreneur Anita Dongre, and Emmy Award-winning wildlife filmmakers Beverly and Derek Dubur. We have so far hosted 28 guests, and these sessions have been seen over 23 million times. We hope that these conversations inspire you and uplift your spirits. Today we have with us Harsh Jain, co-founder and CEO of Dream11, India's leading fantasy sports program. Harsh, so he will be joining us very soon.
Hi.
Hi,
How are you?
Harsh. I'm
Hi,
very
how are
well,
you?
thank you. A big welcome to Shiv Nadar Foundation Conversations. And before we begin, many congratulations to you for IPL 2020 sponsorships, which were all over the news this week. We will dive into that later in the session. But, without further ado, let's begin.
Good. Sure.
So,
Thank you.
so Harsh, please tell us something about yourself, where you come from, your initial years, and so how were your growing up years? And are you a huge sports fan yourself?
Yeah, I think you have to be right to be in the business, but yeah, let me start at the beginning. I'm a Bombay boy, born and brought up in Mumbai, and I went to I've always been a big football fan, actually, even more than cricket, because I used to play football a lot more.
Right.
And I went to Seven Oaks in London for high school in 2001, and that's when I got introduced to fantasy football. And that fantasy football took me from a Manchester United fan to following all the EPL teams, to following what's going on, researching, understanding like which player, which team to pick, etc. And then I went to UPenn after that. So through
Okay.
my 6 years away from home, one of the ways I kept in touch with all my friends back home was through fantasy football.
Wow.
And that's when I really realized the power of fantasy sports. And then when I came back to India in 2000 and late 2007, IPL discussion had just happened,
Right.
right? In 2008,
Right.
they wanted to launch the inaugural IPL.
Yes.
And so me and my friends were chatting about IPL and how it's going to be amazing. And so I said, let's play fantasy cricket. And there was none. So, like, oh my God, this is
Yeah.
crazy, right? The entire Western world, you're not a real sports fan unless you played fantasy sports, right?
Right.
And in India, with 1 billion fans, we didn't have fantasy sports. So it was a massive problem that I felt, which I went to solve, and I hope at least 100 million other Indians would feel the same way. And I asked my friends, and only one of them was crazy enough to join me after a while.
Right.
And we launched what is Dream11, right?
Right. Right.
And so IPL actually gave birth to Dream11.
Wow.
And this is like life coming full circle that now it's called Dream11 IPL this year. So it's
Right.
fun. It's something we could have never ever imagined when we were starting out.
Right.
And then, sorry, can you see me? Those okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
we launched it in 2009, and then 2009 and 11 we learned what not to do. It didn't work
Right.
at all. It was
Right.
a season long, free to play, sponsorship and advertising led model with prize money, and that didn't work at all. And we kept pivoting till 2012,
Okay.
when we found what you see today.
Right.
Pivoted to that model. We grew from 2012, like we had about 300,000 users, 3 lakh users, to about 2015. Sorry, by 2015, we had about 3 lakh users and
Right.
product market fit. And that's when we got our Series A. And then we started ramping up. And in the last 5 years, we've grown from about 3 lakh users to about 8.2 crore users. And
Wow.
now let's see what's going to happen in the IPL.
That's a pretty dramatic rise in the number. But like you very rightly said, the idea is, of course, the birth of this idea is what made this entire fantasy sports in India possible. And that's only happened because of you and your one friend who believed in you. And
No,
like
no,
you
only
said, yes, sir. So we also did a little bit of homework, and I know that, like you were very rightly mentioning, that for 3 years you had to struggle quite a lot. 150 investors backing out, not buying in the idea. So how did you, Harsh? How did you keep yourself so motivated? I'm sure the young entrepreneurs and a lot of students are watching this, and they would love to know what kept you going and what kept the belief so firm that this is where you are today.
Yeah, so first of all, I think we also started when we were 22, right? And so the younger you are when you start, the less like weight of the world you have on your shoulders, responsibilities towards family, family life. Everything is lesser and easier, right? So I think that definitely helped. But yeah, it wasn't easy after 3 years to say, hey, we're going to pivot now because nothing has worked for 3 or 4 years. Now we're going to start what we should have started in the first place. And then have this fundraising journey for 3 years where we heard 150 no's, and then 6 years after we start actually get funded is definitely challenging. I won't lie to you, but I think it's important to have a lot of family support, right?
Right.
And even then, I wasn't married when I started Dream11, but
Hmm.
I was dating my wife, who's my wife right now,
Right.
and it's very important for you to have like your wife, your parents. Like for me, my wife, my parents, my sister were like invaluable in never asking me to stop chasing the dream, right? They
Right.
let me continue it, they let me fail, they let me learn. And I never came back to someone constantly telling me like, just give it up, go get a job, do something. They knew that the only three things that I was passionate about in life were sports, technology, and gaming. And they knew
Right.
that fantasy sports ticked off all those boxes, right? And so I believe that the most important thing for any of these younger entrepreneurs out there is that solve a large problem which is also personal to you,
Right.
right? Maintain your focus on solving that problem. Don't get distracted. And it will take you a minimum of 5 years to build up something of value, right? So after
Right.
1 or 2 years, don't just give up and say, oh, it's not happening. And I think, just persist, right? Persist through all the naysayers and non-believers if you believe in it.
Right.
So yeah, that's about it.
Exactly.
I'm
And
sure you
you vet.
I'm sure you had a lot of similar experiences as a female basketball player in India. Stereotypically, you also must have had a lot of naysayers and non-believers.
Right. And that's what I was coming to. In fact, I could relate to you so much. And when you just mentioned about your family and your now wife and your
Yeah,
sister, that's the support system which
that's right.
we need. It's not just about India. I think it's in the rest of the world. The support system keeps driving us no matter what.
Yeah,
So you very rightly mentioned, even I had a similar sort of trajectory and journey.
yeah.
And I was reading your articles and few of your interviews. So you had mentioned that with every investor saying no taught you a lesson, and
Absolutely.
you kept the learnings going, and that in itself, Harsh, is phenomenal for any entrepreneur or for anyone to believe. So could you just elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. I think that our mantra has to be like fail, learn, fail, learn. And as long as you keep learning with every failure, at some point you'll succeed, right?
You're good to go. Yeah.
And so, like every meeting where every VC turned us down, they had a reason, right? You have to ask them, like, what can I improve? Where do you say? And they'll usually walk you through their thoughts.
Right.
And they don't all have to be right. But there are a lot of things that there is to learn from every person that says no. They have so much insight into all the other industries and what everyone else is doing. And I think every meeting told me, hey, either your gross margin, your contribution margin, your total addressable market, your conversion funnels, your a whole plethora of things, right?
Right.
And each meeting taught me how to chisel down and focus on what's not working and fix it. And so
True.
you can always look at it like, oh, after every meeting, you can be pissed off saying that, oh, they didn't get it, right? And or you can be like, okay, they got it, but here's something stuff to work on, and go back to them and say, you know what you told me last time? These are the things you told me last time don't work. I worked on them, and
Right.
here's some more updates, right? And that's something that I think helps develop that relation, that you are
Sure.
someone that takes constructive feedback, works on it, and comes back to that person. So I think that's important for any entrepreneur out there who's pitching to VCs.
Right. And I think perseverance is
Yeah,
what, is needed, no matter what you're doing, but and a right amount of belief in yourself. But Harsh, let me tell you, playing fantasy sports for so long, you actually learned a lesson which sports teaches you. The biggest lesson, I think, according to me, which sports teaches you is how to lose gracefully and still stand back up on your feet, right?
absolutely.
So it all resonated in how you were just telling us, and it is so inspiring. Congratulations on that.
Thank you, Raspreet.
Before we dive into your business model, we would like to see a short video clip now on Dream11.
Sure, go ahead.
जो देते हैं क्रिकेट को दिल और जान, ड्रीम 11 करता है उनको सलाम। ये गेम है महान। ड्रीम 11, इंडियाज बिगेस्ट स्पोर्ट्स गेम।
Wow.
Yeah,
We saw the legend there himself, right?
yeah.
So before we dive into that, Harsh, please take us through some of the, demystify dream sports for us. And what is Dream Sports or Dream11's USP?
So for the first like 10 years of our journey, we focused on Dream11, right? And initially, we had launched, about 2000 at 2010, when the product wasn't working, we had launched with far too many features. We had launched with news and stats and content and videos and games and everything, and fantasy cricket, right? And then we realized that we needed to focus on the one thing that we wanted to do, which was fantasy cricket. So we pivoted back to that, and then
Right.
that worked. Now we're just getting back to doing what we had originally planned, which is to serve the sports fan, the Indian sports fan, right? And so what we're now doing is that we've now created this Dream Sports company, right? Which has brands like Dream11, like Fan Code,
Right.
DreamX, which is a sports accelerator, and Dream
Right.
Sports Foundation.
Right.
And Dream Sports Foundation obviously has a super role model right here at Shiv Nadar that we can follow.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you know, in terms of like what we want to do as a company is basically we really want to serve the Indian sports fan by making sports better for them. And that's
Right.
why our company tagline is make sports better, right? It's like fantasy sports, like you said, engages audiences in a way like never before with a match they would have normally just passively watched on TV, right?
Right.
Now, every ball in a cricket match, every minute in a basketball or football match and changes your life because your points are going up and down, right?
Right.
And so that's active engagement. Now, with Fan Code, we're now looking after sports content and commerce. We want
All
the
right.
Indian sports fan. We want sports content and commerce to be personalized to the Indian sports fan. Even right now, sports content is more like horizontal, right? It's splashed.
Right.
Everyone sees the
Right.
same thing everywhere. But if there's 10,000 people interested in a basketball match and there's 10 million people interested in a cricket match, unfortunately, today it's almost like only one can be shown and spoken about. But
Right.
we believe that both those audiences should be served individually what they're
Right.
interested in. Apart from that, we have DreamX, which is our sports accelerator, which is which is investing and helping sports companies across any kind of sports company in India
Okay.
to grow extensively under our guidance.
Right.
And we have Dream Sports Foundation, which of course gives back to sports and helps sports athletes.
Right. We will
So
dive more into the we will
yeah,
dive more deep into the Dream Sports Foundation because that's your philanthropical,
yeah,
philanthropy leg towards Dream Sports. And it really inspired me with what you're doing, but we will come to that. So before that, Harsh, a little bit more about, say, how about the pricing mix? Because
sure.
I know it's also a freemium
Yeah.
model which you started. So what was the pricing mix, and how did you reach to a particular pricing mix? Was keeping the prices very low initially help you get a lot of maybe users or viewers or participants?
Yeah. So yeah, you're absolutely right. But this isn't a price where people are buying something, right?
Right.
So this is something that whatever price they pay, 85% of that goes back to them as winnings, right? We keep basically a 15% fee as a
Right.
platform that's serving them. And so we've tried all kinds of pricing models, but about 80% of our users continue to play only for free in their lifetime.
Hmm.
And the whole point of fantasy sports is that it's to engage with a sports match and challenge your friends, your family, and have banter and have fun in a sports match. And so that's why 80% of our users who play for free, we give the entire platform to them without charging them anything.
Wow.
There's only a few people that play for money, and that's how freemium models work worldwide.
Right. Right.
And for them, we've tried all kinds of experiments. We've gone from like 1 rupee actually to like thousands of rupees. We've tried everything, but over time we've seen that what we want to do is have a lot of users playing for very small amounts of money, right?
Right.
It
Right.
only have money from an entertainment value point of view, and
Right.
that's why we have our average ticket size is about 30 rupees, and even in that 50% of people on average are guaranteed their money back at least in
Wow.
winning.
Yeah.
And so it's like way cheaper than any snacks or beverage that you might buy to enjoy a sports game,
True.
but this one gives you like 10 times the excitement of a normal
Right.
sports match.
And I think Harsh, you're doing a great, it's a great initiative. Why? Because if I also see from a player's perspective, the sports appreciation bit, because
Yeah,
not everyone, might be skillful enough to go and play football or cricket or basketball, but everyone can appreciate sports, and I think that's what we need in India, right? People to appreciate sports. So
absolutely.
it's amazing,
We need a multi-sports audience, right? We can't have a
right?
billion people just following cricket, right?
Right.
We
Right.
have this phenomenal country of sports fans, right? We need to give back to the sports ecosystem and build up. There was only cricket 10 years ago. There's is basically only cricket. Now there's ISL and PKL, which have helped football
Right.
already grow a lot. And after that, there's been like a league for everything. There's a league for
Yes.
volleyball, for badminton, for handball, for everything, right?
Even baseball and
Yeah,
all of
baseball.
that. So,
Of
right.
course, basketball is already there.
Yes.
And the whole idea is to get India to become that multi-sport nation that we should be. Because
Right.
our numbers are so phenomenal that even if under 10% of sports fans start consuming like multi-sports, each of those sports will have a fan following larger than some countries, right?
True.
So here's hoping for
So
a
nice.
much more breadth.
Yeah. Right. But that's a brilliant step in, making just the sport so reachable and so people to appreciate, not just cricket, but even the other sports. That's so congratulations on that too.
Right.
Now let's talk about what we had started the conversation with, the big news: MS Dhoni IPL title sponsorship. And just focusing on Dhoni, I know it is an end of an era because he's announced his retirement just this week. But he, continues to play domestic cricket and IPL. So he will be active there. So how did you land Dhoni as the brand ambassador of Dream 11? Please take us through that.
Yeah, that's actually a really interesting story. So, we were thinking of getting a brand ambassador for the first time, I think 2017, and we wanted someone who was really focused on a student of the game, someone who talks about
Right.
stats and analytics, and we signed Harsha Bhogle.
Okay.
And so after signing Harsha Bhogle, we saw good response from the users saying that look, they like the fact that there's someone they recognize and someone they relate to talk about. So we said that okay, let's look at signing some more brand ambassadors. And we had an agency whom we asked that okay, let's brainstorm on our next brand campaign. What's the next campaign we want to do? We want to
Right.
focus on skill and analytics and research, and we want to talk about people who are not just known for their sporting abilities but their sporting brain,
Right.
because fantasy sports is played with your head, dimag se, right?
Yeah, Khelo
And
Dimag Se, right?
correct, Kelo Dimag se was our second campaign, and the agency came back with saying that dimag se Dhoni, right? And we just fell in love with it. And then we were this Chintu Mintu startup. We were like Series B funded, I think, and we had never even thought of Dhoni. We hadn't even signed any other cricketer first, right? And then our team went and pitched to Dhoni saying this Dimag se Dhoni, and he loved it. So it was a very odd way of signing Dhoni. We actually
Right.
came up with a campaign first which said Dimag se Dhoni, and then
Right.
we went and got Dhoni to fill that spot, right?
Wow, you were so confident. Yeah.
No, we
Or it
hope.
just worked.
Oh, yeah,
Okay,
we
you hope.
yeah, and it was a long shot and it worked. And he's the epitome of the brand, right? He just personifies exactly what we want to say, that you should be able to pick the best teams. Dhoni is that one player who everyone can agree on that just makes the team outperform to their own expectations, right?
Right.
And he's just a perfect fit as a brand ambassador. And since then, I believe we now have 28 more athletes who we've signed as brand ambassadors.
Oh, that's so good to know. But that is so catchy with
Yeah,
Khelo Dimag Se and getting Dhoni and being hopeful. I think these are in this conversation. Sorry, there are so many lessons hidden, and I'm sure all our viewers and all our younger generation now tuned in will be learning so much. So
yeah,
let's just dive into one of your more advertisements
sure,
and just maybe have a look at that.
yeah, sure.
खेलो दिमाग से खेलो खेलो दिमाग से ड्रीम 11 पे सब खेल रहे हैं दिमाग से देखो जरा क्या चल रहा है इनके दिमाग में
मैच चुना फिर मैंने पहले चुना कीपर करूंगा रिसर्च मेरी डीप जॉन ने तो लास्ट टाइम मिस की थी स्टंपिंग माइंड मेरा जंपिंग चूज करो फटफट स्लो हुई थिंक 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 थिंक
खेलो दिमाग से खेलो खेलो दिमाग से
सेम नेकलेस टॉप में रिसर्च टॉप तेरा होमवर्क मेरा बोलो यादव मेरा बोलो क्रिस देख तेरे बोलो को पड़ेगा 6
कुछ नहीं होगा फाइट से खेलो दिमाग से ये है इंडिया बिगेस्ट स्पोर्ट्स गेम ड्रीम 11 पे टीम बनाओ ज्वाइन क्रोर्स ऑफ इंडियंस खेलो दिमाग से
Wow.
MS
So
is a legend for doing that. Can you believe? Did you ever think you'll see MS in a hip hop, rock and roll kind of like ad? He
I,
was so good at this. It was amazing.
but he was such a natural.
Complete
You
natural.
know,
That's what I'm saying. He was so good. He's just like, exactly like Captain Cool, right? All the other actors are also, when you have these actors acting out the ad, and then Dhoni sitting next to you, and like for
right.
them also it's like hard to remember all these like hip hop lines you've given them, right? And Dhoni just made everyone like Mahi just makes everyone feel so comfortable around him that you can see that everyone had a great time shooting that ad.
Yeah, and it was just taking me back to of course, I'm not taking any credit away from you, but that's what athletes, and especially the captain, because he's so used to taking so much pressure.
Yeah.
Almost majority of his lifetime has been on the field taking so much pressure. So I think this just comes, but it was so good to see how naturally that all came in, and it was a great ad. And I'm sure a lot of, there would have been a major impact, Harsh,
Yeah.
after signing Dhoni. So would you want to talk a little bit about that? Did your viewership or, stakeholders had a huge rise, or how was it?
Yeah, I think having MS as a brand ambassador has really helped add that credibility that people look at, and it's very important in India, and that's something that we've seen with all the top celebrities, right? That when you have a celebrity endorser and someone, especially someone like MS, it adds a lot of credibility to the brand, and people can trust it more because that brand ambassador has trusted you to
Right.
represent you, and that really helped us break out of a certain chasm and like cross the chasm into slightly more of a mainstream brand. And but we did a lot of other parallel things along with that. For example, we've now signed about 19 or 20, I think 19 leagues worldwide,
Okay.
from ICC to BCCI, IPL, PKL, ISL, Big Bash
Right.
League, New Zealand Super Smash, you name it, and we've signed to make sure we give back to the sporting ecosystem as the official fantasy game. And so, we have 6 IPL teams for whom we are the official fantasy game as well.
Oh,
All of
wow.
this, and now Dream11 IPL, right?
Right.
So
Right.
all of this put together, they all play a part in building up the brand credibility, trust. But finally, your product has to be trustworthy, right? Your product has to be transparent, something people can trust to work, to function the way we claim it to do, and to pay people their winnings when they win, right?
Right.
That's
Right.
also an
Right.
important part in India. And so yeah, I think Mahi's been great in starting to propel us after Harsha and take us to new heights.
Right, right. And it's amazing how you shared the impact, because the brand ambassador has to believe in you and in your project first. And
Absolutely.
I think that was quite instrumental for you and for your journey as well.
Yeah.
So, Harsh, what is next for you and for Dream11? What's your next big dream for Harsh Jain and for Dream11? Or
Well,
for
we have,
Dream Sports in, as a whole?
yeah, we have Dream11 IPL starting in a month, so I don't think I can think beyond that right now, right? We just have to get that right and leverage that to make sure that we get the most out of this Dream11 IPL.
Right.
But I think in the longer term, our goal, like I said, is to make sports better, right? How can we make sports better? How can we make it better for people to play sports online, to consume sports online, to play sports offline? How can we play a larger role in sports AR, VR, in sports statistics, in sports Internet of Things, right? In anything we can do that makes the sports world that much better, that's our goal.
Right. Right. And
And so I think-
I think that's an amazing goal to have. And eventually, as and when you move on, I'm sure you will come up with more innovative ideas. Like you very well mentioned that you have signed also a lot of international leagues. So I think having a foothold of international market and globalization is also something you're, I'm sure, closely looking at.
But no, actually, I believe that the Indian market is pretty large, right? We are very fortunate to be blessed with 1 billion sports fans in India.
Right.
We have 80 million of them on our platform. I think we have a ways to go before we get saturated from India. So, whatever international leagues we've signed up, it's only for the Indian audience. We're only
Right.
the
Okay.
Indian market partner. We're
Right.
not interested in going out and conquering the world and doing all of that. What we just want to serve the Indian sports fan. And as in we're Indian founders, we have one office in Mumbai. We're completely all Indian 400 plus employees. So we're like made in India, made exclusively by Indians, and made exclusively for Indians. Stick to our Indian roots and really focus on the Indian market so that we can solve for the sports problems here. And when we grow like 20 times larger, then we'll have
That's when
saturated
you,
the market, right? So we don't need to look internationally before that.
Harsh, I'm not taking any glamour away from you and for everything you just said, but I think there's something else which is common in all the national level athletes and you, which is passion for India.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
your will to make Indian sports better. So kudos to that. That's
Thank
that's so
you.
good to hear.
We have a lot of work to do in India. India's trailing significantly behind other nations. Every single other large sporting nations has already penetrated and saturated the breadth and depth of sports in their country.
Right, right,
And only in the last 5 or 7 years have we started doing that. You've started seeing someone like Gopi Chand, right? Getting badminton out of the a sport that kids play when they're younger, but then nothing happens, and
right.
to like us winning gold medals in badminton, right?
Yeah,
And so
and
we
to
export now we as a nation feel bad if we don't win a gold or silver, right?
yeah,
That's where we've gone in a short span
we've
of
come
5
to.
years. The talent is there, the people are there, the will is there. We just need to actually go and do it, right? And so I'm sure with people like you representing other sports outside of cricket and then football and kabaddi, the sports ecosystem has only one way to go, and that's up in India.
Right, right. And I think that's a lot to do with what you rightly mentioned is cultural. A lot of this part is also cultural, and that's what you're diving deep into. So
Yeah.
that's so good to hear. Now, Harsh, let me also take few questions from our audience. So
Sure.
Rajat wants to know, what do you think about the competition coming to this space? New fantasy league apps are being launched. So what are your viewpoints on that?
It's great. It's great for us. Look, the pie keeps getting larger. Every new fantasy sports app goes and tells those many more new users about a phenomenon that is fantasy sports and
Right.
get those users to understand what fantasy is and to play fantasy. And then over time, may the best product win, right? So I think it's great for many more fantasy apps to be created. About 5 years ago, when we raised our Series A, I think
Mhm.
there were like we were the only fantasy sports app in India. And then 2 years later, like 3 years ago, there were about 10 players in India. And now there are 185, I think, competitors that we counted.
Wow.
So just imagine now there's 200 companies, right?
Right.
At an average of like 50 jobs per company, that's 10,000 jobs in the fantasy sports market. Apart from that, if you go into the Play Store, the Google Play Store or anywhere else, you will see, or the Apple App Store, you will see that
Right.
we created the equity market for sports, and our users, Indian jugaad, right? Indian like entrepreneurship, they went and created equity research. So there are, at our last count, there are about 150 companies that only provide you data and research and statistics on whom to pick in your Dream 11.
Wow.
There are like 10 books published on Amazon by users saying
Okay.
this is how to win on Dream 11. There are
Wow.
like coaching centers. We've actually sent us coaching center pictures, right? It's called Dream11 coaching classes where people go on the weekends and they teach you statistical modeling for sports. And so
Wow.
it's unbelievable. I love it. I love the fact that that's when you know you've created a platform and not a product. When there's
Exactly my point. Yeah.
ecosystem created around it.
True. So that's what I was coming to, with this one initiative of yours. And, like you rightly mentioned, there were very few competitors when you started. But look where it's come to today. And
Yeah.
Indians are very smart. let
Yeah.
us all take pride in that. So
Yeah.
it's so good to know that there are so many opportunities opening up only by your one of few like-minded people like you coming together and making this work.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Look, this is the, especially at a time like COVID, I think the time the best time for entrepreneurship. Necessity is the mother of invention, and
right,
I believe we will see a lot of innovation and entrepreneurship coming out that started this year. That 5 years later, we'll be talking about the fact that because of COVID, we started solving this XYZ problem. And
right.
5 years later, we'll say, oh my God, these companies were all made in 2020, right? And so, Indian ingenuity,
Amazing.
yeah.
Right. So, just similar to these lines, what we are talking about, Manish wants to know, what do you look for when hiring a new person in your company? Does one have to have die-hard interest in sports for getting selected?
No, you don't need to have die-hard interest in sports. Of course, it helps, right? Because you just connect with that person more as a big
Right,
sports fan yourself.
right,
But no, absolutely not. There are some functions, like a sports operations team, that obviously requires you to be not just an average, but a very hardcore sports fan.
right.
But there are other functions like technology, which doesn't require you to be a sports fan, and technology is more than half our team, right?
True.
But I think what we look for are T-shaped individuals who are very deep, who have very deep expertise in one subject area, but are flexible enough to have the breadth to work in other fields, right? So
Right,
that's why the T-shaped individual, and the most important thing for us is the culture fit, right? Because we
right,
strongly believe that culture is the only thing that scales, and that culture is what will allow you to adapt and pivot with us and work with other people in the best way possible. Because just like team sports, Dream 11 is a team sport, right? And if you put Messi and Ronaldo on the same team, it doesn't mean that that team's going to be amazing. It means that they both might not get along, right?
yeah,
And so team chemistry is very important for us.
right. And that reminds me of one of your quotes, which you very fondly use, Harsh, which is culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Yeah, not my quote. I just like
Okay,
that.
but right. So,
uh,
but I read it on your one of your, I think on Twitter, if I'm not wrong.
yeah.
So, yeah, and that's what you just mentioned about.
Yes,
We'll just take
absolutely.
So we'll just take one more question from the audience. Ankita wants to know that athletes are known to deal with pressure during performance, right? So how do you deal with pressure in your work? And any lessons for us, I mean, for all the listeners?
I think earlier on in my own personal journey, I was more hot-tempered and more emotional to deal with the ups and downs of a journey, as most young entrepreneurs are. Very passionate and not being able to understand why things are not just working out, right? But I think over time you have to realize that it's okay when things don't work out, and the world, this too shall pass, right?
Right,
and,
right,
and it's okay. You just have to stick with it, right? You just have to continue going, and there will be ups and downs, right? Like, okay, talking about Dhoni again, right? There are times when MS has told the non-striker, I'm not going to take the single. I would rather stay at the crease because I think I can do a better job at finishing. And he's won and he's a hero. But there's also a couple of times where that's not worked out.
right.
And then he's villainified, right? And that's okay. You're not going to win every time. But as long as you have more hits than misses and more learnings from every failure, I think then that's how you deal with pressure. You just have to let it pass, right?
Yeah.
And just continue, stay the course.
Right, right. That's very well said. Let me come back to, so you've already given a lot of young entrepreneurs a lot of lessons, Harsh. But, if you have to just name one the biggest lesson which you learned in the journey of starting a startup and getting it to level it is today? What would that be?
Failure is the only way to success, right? Failure is the only road to success.
Yeah.
You know, just think about us as humans, right?
Right.
If you want to walk, you have to fall to learn how to walk.
True.
If you want to learn how to swim, you have to almost start drowning, right? And go underwater a couple of times to then start swimming. Into business or even professional sports sometimes. Somehow
Right.
we forget that failure is the only way to learn and that it's okay to fail. I think in India we also stigmatize failure a lot, right? People don't want to say I failed. People will say, no, but the bright side of this situation is this and this and this. They don't come out and say I failed, right? Like it didn't happen because of XYZ. It's okay. It's my responsibility. I failed, and that's okay because here's what I learned, and now next time I'll do a better job, right? And I think that is really the number one thing that I've learned is that to encourage failure as long as the learnings are attached with it.
Right. And failure is much better than not trying.
Exactly. The only thing you'll regret is not trying, right?
Yeah.
Like later on in your life, you won't remember. Oh, these are the times I failed, and this is what happened. You won't remember any of that. You'll
Right.
just you'll just regret not ever trying that out even.
Right.
So yeah,
So just that's an amazing message, which is don't be fearful of failures. Don't be afraid to fail, because I think that's the beginning of a
yeah,
great, or a person or an initiative or whatever you're trying to do in life. So
absolutely.
that's great, Harsh. Thank you so much for sharing that. Let me, like I promised you before, let's deep down a little bit into your Dream Sports Foundation. I
Sure.
believe that you've also started a new project, which is by the name of Stars of Tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's for athletes where Dream Sports have pledged 3 crores over the 3 years span of time. So
Yeah.
please take us through that.
Sure, and we did that a couple of years ago, so that's coming to an end, and that was our first foray into it. So we had supported 13 athletes in like non-tier one sports of India, right? Like
Wow.
not cricket, not football, not more like swimming, badminton, archery, all different kinds of sports.
Right.
And what we've seen is they've gone on to win 65 medals for India across national and international tournaments. And these are young kids who just needed that financial backing and someone to believe in them. And that's been really amazing for us. And we plan to, that 3 crore was just like an A/B test for us, right? Everything we do at Dream11 is an A/B test, is an experiment.
Right.
When we see good results, we will, you know, go multifold. We'll double down, triple down, 10x of that, and that's what we plan to do with Dream Sports Foundation. Right now, I think in the last few months, we were more focused on COVID, right? So Dream Sports Foundation was helping out. We donated to Maharashtra CM Relief Fund, to the PM Cares Fund, and along with some other agencies that are on ground doing this work, we
Right.
donated like 3,500 PP kits, some 60,000 food packets, and 3,500 hygiene kits all across India, and about 5 lakh masks. And
Wow.
we're trying to do our bit, but we've only been able to help 6 lakh individuals so far, and we want to do more. But now that we see a lot of people getting good help during these COVID times, now we want to shift back our focus to sports. And so our next aim is to help all those sports athletes that have had a horrible like last 6 months, right? Because a lot of people,
Yeah.
a lot of sports athletes have been essentially out of work, right? Work meaning like sports. They've been at home, they haven't been able to play sports, earn money. And we want to help all these sports athletes in India at the lower level financially to get back to playing and get back to winning ways. So
Right.
yeah, that's the
That's
plan going forward.
That's a great initiative and a great thought, Harsh. I must congratulate you on thinking about all of those athletes, and they are just blessed to have, Dream Sports Foundation and Harsh Jain and your partner around.
No, no,
So, yeah, let me take the last question, Harsh. So, you were Dream Sports is ranked. You made a hat trick, I believe. It's ranked in top 10 great places to work in India continuously for 3 years. Me
yeah,
being an athlete myself, I understand that reaching at the top is difficult, but to be consistent at the top is, that's the tougher part.
yeah,
So, how did you maintain consistency, or how did you remain consistent?
yeah. So I think great place to work, top 10 finalists, right? And I think that's exactly the same point as entrepreneurship. You don't try to become a unicorn, right? You solve a large problem, you do the small things right every single day for many years, and hopefully you provide a lot of value to users, and then you as a company will be valued as well. But the same thing with our work culture, right? It's about getting that culture driven company and doing things right every single day, the small things, taking care of your employees, taking care of your team, building the right team chemistry. And when the time comes, the people who are in your team, because they love where they work and they love the people they work with, and they love the mission of the company to make sports better, they will go out of their way to do whatever it takes to help you succeed in your mission. And that's just the culture we live with. And fortunately for us, Great Places to Work has recognized that for the last 3 years. So
Right.
yeah.
Congratulations once again on that. And when you were mentioning about this, so about small things, I remember one of our coach who had come from US and back in 2010. Her favorite tagline was "Small things makes big difference,"
Yeah.
and I think that's
Absolutely.
exactly what you just elaborated on.
In fact,
So,
in the digital world, like, there's a whole concept of growth hacking, right? You don't need to do big things. You just need to improve 1% every day. And if you improve 1% every day, you've already grown 400% in a year, right? That's all you ever need. So just,
so
optimize and focus on the small wins.
right, and it does make eventually it will make that big difference you're looking at.
Absolutely.
Harsh, let's do something fun. Now, I'm not saying this was a very exciting and very insightful session we've had so far, and we're coming towards the end of it. So let's do a rapid fire with Harsh Jain.
Shoot.
Yeah. So, do you yourself have team on fantasy leagues?
Of course. I mean, of course I have to. But I'm actually, it's an open secret, but I don't
Okay.
play fantasy football as much on Dream11. I still continue to play fantasy football on the EPL fantasy website, which is called Fantasy Premier League. And I'm
Okay.
very proud to say that I think I've been in the 99th percentile for the last few years,
Wow.
globally. So this year I actually had a great year. I was in the like 99.99 percentile in the world. So yeah, I'm a hardcore fantasy football player, and all the other sports I play fantasy on Dream11, but only for
Okay.
free.
So, all right. So, who's that one footballer who's always on your team?
In my fantasy Premier League,
Yeah.
actually, I'm a Manchester United fan. I shouldn't be saying this, but what are you going to do in fantasy football? You have to go with the stats and not the favorites. And so Kevin De Bruyne right now,
Okay.
game week 1 to
Okay.
game week 38, will be on my team.
All right. Kabaddi or cricket? Your pick.
Football. But no, I'm a big football player myself. Like I love playing football. But yeah, cricket then definitely over kabaddi, just because I think you always you always are attracted more to the sport that you play, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so I've grown up playing cricket and football, so cricket. But kabaddi is growing leaps and bounds after PKL, right? So I definitely think it's arguably the number 2 or definitely the number 3 sport in India right
Yes,
now.
it's picked up really well. It's
Yeah.
especially after the league was launched.
Yeah.
It's
And you know
it's
what
it,
happens when you're watching PKL, you're watching the world's greatest kabaddi, right? Which helps a lot because it's a
right,
high quality and caliber of game. And from India is not about tier 1, right? It's about tier 3, 4, 5. That's
right,
India. And
right.
for them, kabaddi is the sport they grew up with. So yeah,
And I see the huge fan following
yeah,
during the league and
absolutely.
people talking about it. So you very rightly mentioned that it is arguably the number 2 sport right now when it comes to the viewership, for
I think
sure.
football. I think it's split. Football is more tier
Yeah,
1, tier 2, tier 3, and then
right.
kabaddi is more tier 3, tier 4, tier 5, and there's some
Yeah,
overlap in the middle. Yeah.
right. So, more users or same users with higher wallet share?
Oh, more users any day. Our platform isn't meant to be right. Like I said, our average ticket size is like 30 rupees, right? So
Right,
it's about providing entertainment, engagement, playing with your friends, playing with your family, playing with your colleague, and so definitely more users having keeping them more entertained for sports.
so one person or entrepreneur who inspires Harsh Jain the most?
Mukesh Dhirubhai Ambani for sure. So I think what Mukesh Ambani has done is nothing short of a miracle, right? To go from like building one of the world's largest oil refinery, from taking it from his dad and taking it to the next level in terms of oil refinery, petrochemicals, and then working on something like Geo, right? Which is as opposite, but being able
Right,
to excel in both. And along the way, working on Reliance Retail and health and life sciences and everything else that they do, right? I think it's also important to learn that even someone like Mukesh Ambani has to persevere to realize their dream, right? Even Reliance started their telecommunications dream back with Infocom in the early 2000s, right? And then Infocom happened, and then they stopped telecommunications, and then now RIL has started Geo. That Geo also started 10 years ago, right? But what happens is that people only see Geo as the last 3 years, right? But it's actually like almost a 20-year journey. So it's amazing to see that every dream needs perseverance and grit and someone to stand there and saying, I believe and I will succeed. And
right.
that's why it's so much more inspiring.
Yeah, and if you persevere and if you have a dream and if you have a right amount of belief in yourself, I think now even sky is not the limit. So that
Absolutely.
just resonates with what you just mentioned.
In
Thank
Michael Jordan, I believe I can fly, right?
yes. So
Yeah.
that used to be one of our motivational songs for one of the teams. So it just takes me down the memory lane. And
For
but
everyone. Yeah.
thank you so much. Thank you so much, Harsh, for joining us. It was very inspiring, and I'm sure a lot of viewers, a lot of students who've logged in today have learned so much with your just sharing about your journey, which has been immensely successful.
Thank you
So
so much. Thank you so
thank you
much for
so
that. And it was a pleasure talking to you, Raspreet, and all the very best to you too.
Thank you so much, and wishing you the best for all your future endeavors and all the best for the IPL season 2020. And I just want to remind all the viewers that this conversation will continue to be available on the Shiv Nadar Foundation's Facebook page in case you would like to come back to this another time. Thank you, Harsh, once again. It was truly
Thank
an
you.
honor.
Thank you very much. The honor was mine.